Hi, and welcome to SF Live. I'm your host, Christina Marie Flores. Tonight we have with us one of the new kids on the board from District 11, the Supervisor John Avalos. Welcome, John.
Thank you.
How
I
are
thought you were
you?
going to say one of the new kids on the block.
That too. Well,
That would work.
it wouldn't really be a new kid on the board because you actually have been around the Board of Supervisors for quite a long time.
I worked there about 3.5 years with my puppet master, Supervisor Chris Daly.
Oh no, the puppet master. Lovely. Well, I want to know a little bit about you. You were born in Wilmington, California.
That's right. Wilmington's part of Los Angeles, right on the waterfront, and it's a small town, mostly Chicano and Latino population, and my dad was a longshore worker, so he worked right there in Long Beach, San Pedro, right on the docks.
Your dad and your grandfather.
My grandfather as well. My grandfather, he actually got a job on the docks. He didn't have a job. He kind of landed one after he would collect firewood on the docks, and then he would sell that, and eventually he got a job in the companies. But he was kind of scavenging for a while just to get by.
And you are a third generation Mexican American. And now, were your family, your father or mother, either of them into politics or something that would have led you to where you are today?
Not really. My dad had a friend who was with his union who ran for city council in Los Angeles, and I did some precinct work for him when I was like 10, just dropping lit. But that was it. That was the only politics I had when I was a kid, and didn't really do much more, and understood much more of it than how to drop it so it wouldn't fly away in the wind.
Okay. So you weren't like a community organizer with your gang of kids that you hung out with? I mean, were you an instigator as a kid? What were you like as a kid?
As a kid, I was actually, I loved riding my bike as a kid, and there were all these little great places to ride my bike, and I was just kind of this kid who had this red Stingray, Stingray, and I just like do jumps, and I thought I was Evel Knievel, and mostly it was just like athletic and loved sports and loved baseball, and I was in LA and Wilmington until I was about 12 years old, and then we moved to the East Coast, and then everything changed.
Is that when you ended up in Andover, Massachusetts?
That's
right. Andover. How did you get to Andover, Mass? How did you make that jump?
It was just bizarre. Well, my parents got divorced, and one of the first families that, and anyone I knew, my peers, when I was in Wilmington, that parents got divorced, so that was like a big thing. We were like Catholic, and no one did that kind of thing.
Oh,
it was
yeah,
like excommunication and all that. But my parents got divorced. My mom remarried a person who was from the East Coast, and he landed a great job on the East Coast, and we all packed up and moved over there. And so we were the first Mexican American family in Andover, Massachusetts.
Wow. So did you meet a lot of prejudice there, or were they fairly open, the community?
In Massachusetts, prejudice?
What you talking about?
Let's see. My first nickname was Chief, because people thought I was Indian. They didn't know what Mexican was.
Oh no! So they just kind of figured.
They wouldn't say hello to me. They'd say how. That was not everyone, but there were a lot of people did that.
Really? How did that feel as a kid? Nobody.
Well, when you're like the real minority in a place and you're trying to fit in, you try and just go along or ignore, and so that was like it was kind of hard. But then they found out I was Mexican. I wasn't Indian. Although Mexican is mestizo, is part indigenous. They call me Chico.
Okay.
That was a step up.
From Chief to Chico.
Chico and the Man was show in the 70s. And
I remember.
That was Chico, and kind of went along with that for a little while too. And now when I see people from Andover, Massachusetts, they're saying, "I can't believe we called you Chico."
Oh no.
So people have become enlightened over the years.
Wow.
Which is good.
And your journey led to university where you studied. You got into politics then, or English lit?
I got into politics more like there's a little bit of anti-apartheid work, mostly going to demonstrations, or there was all the wars happening in Central America. We go to demonstrations protesting the Reagan administration's, supporting the Contras against the Nicaraguan government, things like that. But I was mostly high level. There was a rally. I go to the rally, but I was never organizing the rally, and didn't really get involved in anything like that until I came to San Francisco, and I was really. Meeting people who are really, activists at the ground level that I felt rooted with, that really got me involved in politics. And my first place that I would say had the most impact on me was going to social work school at San Francisco State University.
And that was in 89, were you?
No, I got here in 89, but I went to social work school in 95, 96. And I had an internship at Coleman Advocates for Children and Youth.
Okay.
And that's where I got involved in real politics in San Francisco. And working with City Hall, trying to make City Hall more accountable, especially around making sure that the city was doing more to protect families and children and youth. And at that time, it was trying to prevent youth from being over-incarcerated.
And so you moved to San Francisco in '89. What was the city like then? How different was it than it is today? I mean, do you remember what it was like when you first moved here?
Yeah, it was much more, hard edge and working class than it is now. And I moved to Hayden Webster. My first apartment was on Hayden Webster Street,
okay.
which is right across from some public housing. And there was a lot of violence going on, a lot of stuff happening between the people who lived in the housing projects there with the projects up on Bay Street and Hunters Point. So we saw a lot of that violence on the street. And I was struggling, when I first came here. It was a recession when I first came to the city. It was really hard to find a place to land for work, and it didn't have a lot of great skills to rely on at that point.
That's when you were cafe latte?
I was cafe latte. I worked at a coffee cart downtown on the corner of Market and Sansom. And I worked there about 6 hours a day. We would get the cart, pull it out of the warehouse, which is on 9th and Howard. We'd take it over to Market and Sansom and have to push it up onto the sidewalk, hook it up. So I started at 5 o'clock in the morning, opened up the cart at 6 o'clock in the morning for business, and would leave at like 12.
Wow.
And did that for about a year.
And I bet you learn a lot of stuff on the street, though. I mean, you're the coffee connection in the morning, that these people are on their way to work. Did you overhear a lot of grievances about the city, or?
It was, they had the bike messengers that were right there. There was the wall. It was where they kind of congregated. So I hear a lot about kind of the scruffy work of the bike messengers. I always thought it was very romantic, the bike messengers, kind of saw them as like, people who were living on the edge, like people who worked in the whale boats back in the 1800s. Some people were just completely off the charts, but living like a really fascinating life. And so I heard a lot about them, and they got trod on a lot by people they served, but they actually had a lot of pride in what they were doing. It was really cool.
Now, you were talking about Coleman Advocates and getting involved with the Boys and Girls Club and that. What made you decide that is what you wanted to go into? Was there any one incident or thing that you saw in the city that was needed for children in the city? Or? Well,
yeah, I mean, I saw that young people didn't have a lot of choices, a lot of options about what they could do in their after-school hours, or there was limited youth employment opportunities, and I wanted to see how I can work with young people to help them define what they needed and get City Hall to pay more attention to them. So we did a lot of outreach and workshops with young people, help them to draft proposals that they can take to City Hall and try and get supported by the Board of Supervisors.
Oh, that's great.
Shop things around for legislation.
You work with Chalk, too.
I worked with Chalk.
And that's so
Chalk
funny.
was one of the groups I worked with to do that.
And that is wonderful. That's actually, my daughter works with Chalk, Monica Flores, and she has a show here at Youthline Live here at Access. And it's so cool that you worked on that. How long did you work with them?
I wasn't there a long time. It was probably like 7 months. I would just get out of school, and it was my first job. I landed at a social work school, and it didn't pay me enough money, so I had to I had that job, I was looking for something else. But it was fun. I had a great time. We hired about 30 Youthline listeners between the ages of 15 and 22, and we had a really great environment we made for them where they felt really comfortable, and they learned to be, counselors to other young people, help them make choices about, gangs, or about staying home, or about, in the worst case, prevention of suicide. A lot of things where, they got involved in doing really hard work with their peers.
And you see, there's a lot of kids in San Francisco, and I'm trying to wonder, there's a lot of children in San Francisco, but as they get older, they move out. The families tend to move out. And I think, is that because of lack of services or opportunities for the kids? I don't know if it's getting much better.
I think it's getting worse. I just think it's really difficult to live in this city, and it's very expensive to live here. And then when you leave the nest, it's really hard to land a job to help you pay for the rent. So you go to Oakland, or you go down on the peninsula, or you live in Daly City, or you live out in Pinole. It's just very, very difficult to maintain generations of households here in the city. And you always have new people coming in who make a little more money, who are able to pay a little more money, and so that drives up the rents, and it's really difficult to maintain standard of living here for families. And I think we have good services, and we probably need more services. Even for middle-income families. I mean, childcare is a really major expense, and how do you cover that? I have like 2 kids I pay for childcare for, and that's really difficult. And I can't imagine how families who have a lot less money, how they get by, and barely.
Yeah, just making it.
And over the past 15 years since the dot-com boom, we've seen a lot of families leave the city, and we have a declining children population in San Francisco.
Very much so, and the gap is widening between those that have a lot of money and those that are making less and less money and trying to live here. It's much different